I guess I'd start with the regular intro, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Um, Hello and welcome to the Fisher Protocol, the show where saying the Who is the greatest rock and roll band of all time is not subjective, but everything else is. Please take a quick second to like, subscribe, and share us with your Who-minded friends. The Who is a passion of ours. This is more of a personal journey, and no money is made from these videos, so liking and subscribing lets us know we're not alone in Who land. Constructive feedback is always welcome, either in the comments below, or you can follow me at Fisher Protocol on Twitter and Instagram, where I put some Who things, some other things, but mostly I try to keep it to the Who. I'm Ethan. I'm being joined today by my best Who friend, Tom. We do not claim to be experts, just two guys who like to talk about the greatest rock and roll band of all time, The Who. Hey, Tom.
What's going on, Ethan?
Nothing. This is a little weird today because I read a very nice article today by someone we both know, and it talked
Okay.
about the resolutions for the year. And the first resolution I read about in this article was, let me see, stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Okay, you know the article I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Great guy. Wrote this great article. I don't know if the other things, go with what we're doing here, but the first one is stepping outside your comfort zone.
Okay. Yep.
So, uh, we're a Who show. We talk about the Who. We love the Who, but the Beatles Get Back came out. It came out, and I know we're behind the curve. It came out on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Um, I wanted to talk about it, but then you asked me if I want to talk about it, and then I thought, well, we talk about the Who, not the Beatles, and you're like, don't be so lame. So I asked people, and I asked some people, and one or two people came back saying they wouldn't mind us talking about it. So today we're going to talk about the first episode of the
Yeah.
Beatles documentary, Get Back. Um, Tried something new. Got the new background. So the what I said at the beginning goes double for the Beatles. We really don't count ourselves experts on the Beatles, right? Would you say that?
No, not at all.
Yeah. But we're gonna I don't think it's very hard to find two middle-aged white guys talking about the Beatles on the internet. That's why I try to talk about the Who. Plus, they're my first love. But we're gonna try today. So before we get started, what give us some of your background just with the Beatles.
Yeah. So I would definitely say the Beatles are like the music of my childhood. My mom is a Beatles fanatic, to the umpteenth degree. So definitely grew up listening to the Beatles. If mom was around, that's what we're listening to. If it was dad, it was AC/DC and Def Leppard, that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I know the Beatles inside and out as far as music wise. Um, you know, I've heard everything 100 times at least. So definitely comfortable listening to the Beatles. Are they my favorite band in the world? Not necessarily, but they do take me to a special place as far as nostalgia and all that stuff.
I think we've all spent time with those Beatles records, right? Like,
Yeah, you have to.
yeah. I discovered the Who when I was 10. I don't remember when. Your parents with the Beatles. You said your mom, and it's good to know about Def Leppard. We'll do the Hysteria podcast later. That'll be great. um, the question is, was she singularly focused on early Beatles, later Beatles?
Oh, anything. I think more early stuff. Just because she was like a little kid when that stuff was coming out. And that was just electrifying. But I think there isn't anything that she doesn't like. Maybe some of like the Indian kind of Satari stuff she doesn't really care for. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, she was in love with the Beatles, and she'll never forgive her father for throwing away all the Beatles trading cards she had because she had all of them, and
Money.
that, yeah, exactly, all those things. So um, yeah, I mean, eat, sleep, breathe, Beatles stuff. She knows it all.
My parents had a very I didn't know this at the time, had a very strict cutoff of like 1966 or 67,
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
didn't know that. So it was all the first song I ever like got crazy for on the radio was "I Want to Hold Your Hand," right?
Right.
Um, and then it was all just that early Beatles "Love Me Do." She played with the Beatles a lot, up to Sergeant Pepper. After that, they had to bail because like I don't know why. Thank God my brother stepped in, right? And
Yeah.
he got me into the White Album, Abbey Road. all that stuff. Which
Yeah, I literally have I have every vinyl that the Beatles ever made.
yeah, and I have like all of my parents' ones, but they're all stamped with their names. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
big stamps or property of. Um, uh, so yeah, I would say we're Beatles fans for sure. Question before we get into the documentary, specifically "Let It Be." Where do
hmm
you? Where are you with? What's your history with that album? Are you a particular fan of it? Anything that you like more than another on that one?
It never jumped off the page for me. And when I started watching the documentary, I definitely went back and listened to the album a lot more. Just because I knew where things were going. So let's catch up on some of the things maybe I didn't pay attention to. Obviously, the real big songs from the album, but um, some of those other ones, I wasn't that familiar with, and I definitely heard them over the years. It wasn't something that was ingrained in my memory. If I'm listening to the Beatles and if I'm in the mood for the Beatles, like I put on the White Album. That's what I like listening to, and I like some of the early stuff just because it's happy-go-lucky. Reminds me of being 6 years old. Um, but as an adult, White Album is what I like.
Sure. Um, I don't think you could get really a better run of three songs like at the end of Sergeant Pepper. Really, like
Oh yeah, that
Lovely
too.
Rita into Good Morning into that reprise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are rocking things. I like rocking things. Uh, you know, on Let It Be for me, I knew the big songs. I heard them all before, but much later in life, I really got into Dig a Pony. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's a really cool song for me. But and do you have any experience going back and forth between like the studio version and like the Let It Be Naked kind of thing?
Not really. If I'd listened to anything, a lot of the stuff I listened to was like the straight album. Growing up, my mom had all that stuff and all
Yeah,
the vinyls too. Because I mean, I had a record player in my bedroom when I was probably 12 or something. I kind of inherited the record player from my parents, so and that's what I had, and that's what I listened to.
so we all have our own Beatles baggage going into this
Yeah.
documentary, right? Um, First of all, let me say I watched it like the weekend it came out on that Thanksgiving weekend. I cleared the house. I told my wife and son to go in another room. I had to watch it all because I'm so into like music and interpersonal relationship stuff that it was a really fascinating watch. So this is my second time going through it. Did you watch it before, or is this your first time watching it?
I watched it before, and then I put it on last night, knowing that we are going to talk.
Yeah.
And I kind of had it on in the background a little bit, but I was still paying attention here and there, and um, but yeah, no, it's really tedious to watch, especially episode one. But damn, it's good.
Um,
Setting the story.
Yeah, the first time I don't think it's and tedious is a really strong word for me because I'm so into watching what's going on. It's definitely an easier watch the second round because you're not paying so um it, it's almost what's the word when there's too much coming at you at once.
Oh yeah, overstimulation.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just like
overstimulation. You have to figure out what they're doing with the sounds and the conversations and how it's going to be. Um,
yeah,
so, I mean, I really like it. It's one of my favorite music documentaries. Kids All Right being number one, just
of
so everyone
course.
knows. Amazing Journey Story, The Who being number two. No, I'm kidding. So we start off. The thing I noticed we start off is Yoko Ono is there like right away with John.
Yeah,
Okay, and you hear all this stuff about her through years and through stupid things, and I would like to think the general consensus is that this is the woman, quote unquote, who broke up the Beatles is over, and that's some kind of outdated thinking at this point.
right.
And I only, I don't want to expound too much on these big points, but one of them is being older now, knowing how people are and what toxic environments can be, it's very easy for me to leave that environment. It's not
Yeah.
easy for uh, the most famous people in the world
Right.
to leave that thing, right? And so the fact that he has to have his wife or girlfriend there for him to even attend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't even go unless I have some kind of support here. It's, it made me feel for John Lennon in a way I hadn't before because, she gets a lot of stuff, but they obviously went together like peas and carrots, Jenny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if anything struck you about seeing her right off the bat, but he obviously couldn't go anywhere without her. And,
Yeah. And yeah, I do remember seeing her just go, oh my God, like she's there all the time. And she's not even like actively engaged in a lot of what you see. Um, she's, half the time she's reading a newspaper or just sitting there listening, um, which is kind of crazy. But then like thinking about like not knowing how to leave, you know, situations like that or whatever, or to deal with that. Like these guys are also not kids, but they're still young. You know what I mean? They're 20, I think 29 in the movie. Like,
way younger than us.
yeah, I mean, it's like I wouldn't sit here and say I've got my shit figured out yet,
Right.
And I'm also, the time when those guys got famous, they were like 16. They've never had any real life experience, so yeah, I'm not going to judge anybody on how they're handling their situations in this.
Yeah, but it just shines new light on everything,
Yeah.
and I'll have more to say at next episode because there's other stuff coming up. I loved hearing "Jealous Guy" before it was "Jealous Guy." I forgot what it was called,
Mhm.
which is my favorite John Lennon song, and I only like a couple. I'm not a big fan of
Yeah.
John Lennon's post Beatles output. Hey guys, we're a Who podcast. I'm just saying we're trying to talk about the Beatles, so
Yeah.
don't come at us. You know what I mean? I liked watching him jam. I liked hearing him do "I Shall Be Released."
Yes. I love that song.
Yeah. How about um, them starting to talk about this live show that they're doing in a different country?
It sounds absurd, but it's the Beatles and they could have done literally anything they wanted to. I mean, they could have played in Antarctica and nobody would have batted an eyelash. Like they would have made it happen. But they were talking about going to what, Morocco, or it was just like what? Um, but I mean, just in general, them like the idea of like a live show is like an outrageous idea is kind of crazy. Um, especially coming from being massive Who fans, where they played everything.
Well, the other thing that struck me about here is like they are the Beatles. They can do anything they want, but they've given themselves this like really tight timetable to learn new
Right.
songs, and it's all
Yeah, 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah,
it's all self-imposed pressure that they kind of placed there for whatever reason. Um, Probably because they didn't want to be there, is what it sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. It's just like, hey, let's just rip this band-aid off. Let's do it. Let's get it over with, kind of thing.
Because I guess they were coming off of. It sounds like the latest thing they did was "Hey Jude." I don't know. We're not experts on the Beatles. Hearing two of us thoroughly goings through the show was fun. Ringo did a song, and these are just notes I took. Taking a trip to Carolina. It
Yep.
is mildly disheartening to see the treatment of the musical contributions of Ringo and George in this movie.
Oh, it's brutal. And I mean, at no point can you sit there and go, all right, yeah, Ringo was always bringing a ton to the table. But you gotta give the guy a shot to give you something. But I mean, I really felt bad for George, and I get where he's coming from, with the way the episode ends. Um,
But yeah, you, but yeah,
somebody,
you come in and you bring in "All Things Must Pass," and they're like, "Cool."
yeah, okay, well, I want to, let's try that. It's like, Yeah, I mean, just some of. I mean, he writes some of my favorite songs, and yeah, just I felt so bad for the guy because McCartney's McCartney, and you know, what are the odds you have Lennon and McCartney in your band and both can write the songs they write, and George Harrison is one of the best third wheels in the world. You know what I mean? Like
He's
it's
by,
unbelievable.
he's by far my pick for favorite Beatle. That's because I'm a guitar guy.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you.
The first time I heard "While My Guitar Gently Weeps," I almost wept. I was like, you know,
Yeah.
and when I heard it on the anthology, you know, people make a deal about like Clapton being coming in and being the guitar player on that. But if you hear the anthology one, which is just George and the acoustic, I mean, it's almost better. It's almost more beautiful. It's just a beautiful
Yeah.
song. It's my favorite Beatles song by far.
I mean, you could play that song on the recorder and it would still be an amazing song. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah, and he comes in the
yeah,
next day. He's
hands
like,
down.
I wrote this last night, and they're like, let's listen to it. And it's "I Mean Mine." I'm like, what? This guy's amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that
Yeah.
in the middle. All right, so here's where the Beatles and the Who collide. Okay, this is the stuff we're here for. We got the man. We got Glenn Johns in studio. Okay,
Yep.
in the future, this man will produce Who's Next, Quadrophenia, the Eagles' first record, because I'm listening to some Eagles stuff lately. Sorry.
Pink Floyd, right?
Yeah. No, I don't. I can't say for
No?
sure. I don't think so.
I'm looking it up.
Edit.
For some reason, I thought he
Yep.
did. I know he did the Stones too, right?
Yo, yeah, tons of Stone stuff. I have his
No
book
Pink Floyd.
upstairs.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I don't think so. I always remember someone named James Guthrie or Alan Parsons doing.
Alan Parsons.
Yeah. Who is here? Who is in this documentary later on as like a tape showrunner? The man has been getting. Glenn Johns has been getting lots of. And he's sick of it. He's been getting lots of attention for his clothing in this. And I mean, it's because it's amazing. It's awesome.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but he's
like a character almost.
yeah, and he's technically the engineer here, not the producer. Of course, if you speak to, I think, someone we love, Zach Starkey. I believe
Yep.
Zach Starkey gave an interview saying that Glenn Johns is the producer of Let It Be. George Martin's kind of like the executive producer, I guess. But Glenn Johns is the man doing the nuts and bolts, placing the amps, getting the sounds.
Yeah.
And I guess this will speed him towards more even, upper echelon rock royalty things.
Yeah.
But if there's a Who song that I love in the 70s, Glenn Johns, it went through his ears before it went to a record.
Oh, I mean, yeah, just he's King Midas, you know.
Yeah. We have two highlights of this episode. I mean, did anything, before I just go on, did anything like really jump out at you this episode that you wanted to talk about?
It's there's a scene where I think it's Paul and they're waiting for John to show up, and like Paul's like figuring out Get Back, like you can just see it happening, and it's just like that's really cool. You know what I mean? And like knowing a lot of these songs, you can like start hearing like the beginning, like the framework being put up for him, and you're just like, oh man, like you're like watching it happen. Is pretty interesting. And just how they flesh things out and how they work on it. And it seems effortless too. You know, like they can just like not even sing words, but just sing like melodies over what, where they want the things to go.
And the
Yeah, just watching that process.
the confidence to know that the words are going to come, right? We're going to get there with the words. We just need to bang out this tune first.
Yeah, I just can't. Yeah, I don't know how it works. I don't know how any of that works. And I mean, I've watched lots of documentaries of how all this works, but it's just like, how does that come out of somebody? Like,
Well, and that's the thing. Like, and we've talked this before about the Who and this album or this documentary, because we wish we had something like this for the Who.
well,
But it's so different, Pete Pete Townsend would come into the studio with the demos fully ready, just needing the drums, the bass, and the vocal, right?
Redone. Yeah, it's not even
Redone.
like he needs them done. Yeah, it's
Right.
like
So it sounds like The Who. It's like this is a completely different way of working. There's 4 guys in the studio working out the songs all the time.
yeah.
And it really is fascinating to watch, and that's kind of the highlight for me of this episode is definitely Paul McCartney, and everybody's seen it just coming up with Get Back, just sitting there, and we know what it's going to turn into, but he doesn't know yet, and it's beyond fascinating.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's moments where it's like, oh my God, like if you've ever been at a band rehearsal, you're just like, oh my God. Like there are times when I'm watching that documentary where I feel like Ringo, but, uh, but again, yeah, it is just insane just to see these guys coming up with it and talking to each other. And, you know, John can look over what Paul's playing and figure something out. But there's also moments where I feel bad where like, you know, Paul's like, "Hey George, don't noodle over this or whatever it was. Like you're gonna mess up John's noodling," and it's like, "Fuck off!" Like,
Right.
like
Right after Get Back was the Mr. Epstein conversation, which
yeah,
is quite heartbreaking to hear them do it the way they do it.
yeah.
And I don't know if they do that because they've been through the grieving and they haven't, or they're British and they can't talk about grief in any way, or it's
All the above, probably.
it's just it's a very sad conversation to hear them have. Like they know what they lost,
Oh yeah,
and
he was the driving force for him. You know.
and it was pretty sad for me to listen to that. Also, hearing Paul work out Carry That Weight.
Yep.
Watching this, it's so fun to watch the office type mentality, the different personalities they have. Paul is the boss.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And I guess I knew that on some level, but seeing it is insane. And they're all kind of waiting for the boss to get in. And the musical ideas come when the boss isn't there. But when the boss gets there, George is like, "I wrote a song last night. Do you want to hear it?"
Yeah.
For George. Or when Paul has to approach John Lennon and say, "Have you written anything?"
Right.
And it's like, no. Well, I was really hoping
Yeah.
you'd write something, you know.
It is kind of hilarious that like I mean Paul's definitely driving force. Keeps he's the one who's into it, wants to do what he's doing and be there, and then like John kind of shows up like whatever like and then like George actually has stuff and he gets kicked to the curb. It's like yeah, I don't blame. I mean I don't blame him for getting ticked off. Like
Right.
and Ringo's not going to mess up his sweet deal. He knows what's going on. Ringo's in the biggest band in the world and he is not bringing a ton to the table.
Well, I mean,
He's incredible. He's an incredible drummer.
yeah, but he's there every day.
He's there. Oh, he's always on time. He's always there. He's ready to work.
And he is, as Paul says, the best backbeat in the business, right?
Yeah.
And more importantly, he's the father of the drummer of the world's greatest rock and roll band, The Who.
Yes.
But we'll get past that at some point. Okay, there's a couple things I wanted to touch on before we go. I didn't see as much John being funny as I would have liked to.
Yeah. It was not a funny episode.
Except when he's lip syncing "Let It Be." That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
When Paul is not playing the bass, they are playing this weird 6-string bass instrument. Do you know what that is?
I have no idea. No.
Okay, take a look at it next time in the next episode. It's
Yeah.
like a Fender Jaguar looking thing. It's got 6
I was wondering what
strings,
it was.
but
I
it's,
just-
like,
I thought-
it's a bass instrument of some kind.
Is it like a mandocello?
I don't know, but I bet you someone on the internet will tell us. So
Yeah, I'll have to look it up because I just assumed it was like a Jaguar or something like that, and I was just like, whatever. Like I didn't give it a ton of thought.
it's definitely for bassy parts when Paul's on the piano.
Right.
Oh, and that guy, Val, I think his name is, when they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to lunch. We need an anvil when we get back."
Yeah.
By the time to get back, he's got an anvil there. It's great.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been that guy.
Yeah,
Just
but,
like the gopher for the Beatles.
but also like the pressure they don't see you under.
Oh no, well yeah,
Yeah,
obviously,
like
but
that guy's killing himself like probably to the last minute to get the
trying to
end.
find an anvil.
Yeah,
But
for a song that most of them did not want to record. We find out later. Uh,
yeah, I mean, yeah, again, like George bringing you these incredible songs, and then you're like trying to do this freaking song with an anvil. Like, oh my god, like,
yeah, yeah. I have a soft spot for Maxwell Silverhammer, but then again, we've heard it. They're programmed in our brains, right?
yeah, it's not an awful song, but it's just like you give me, isn't it a pity, or something like that,
Right,
like,
right, totally. Um, before we hit the final point, this publishing guy comes in and talks to them for a little bit towards the end, and this will happen a couple times in the documentary, where they will talk business with a music industry guy who wants to like impress them, and
yeah,
then at some point they will just float out of paying attention and walk to their instruments, and this industry type is sit there like, with these guys just walked away. It's like just a so rock and roll thing, that I like watching.
yeah. I mean, they're just in a position that no one's going to tell them no anything. It's just like,
Yeah, but he's like trying to impress them with what catalog he bought or whatever, and like Paul cares a little bit, but the rest of them don't like care at all.
yeah,
I believe the answer was, "Do you want to?" Someone asked George if he, Ringo asked George if he wanted to see the thing that he owns half a percentage of, and he's like, "No, not really." You know. Okay, a shout out to Vera Lynn. They say she performed "Full in the Hill," and Vera Lynn gets the shout out in the wall from that song "Vera Lynn."
Yep.
Vera, great song. And I guess George, the end of this episode is George leaves the band,
yeah,
which was just kind of crazy because he was just like, "I gotta go."
yeah. I think I'll be leaving now, or something
Yeah.
like that.
And they said, "See you around the clubs," and they show his diary entry, and it says, "Rehearse for half the day, quit the Beatles." It's like, but the best part is when the other Beatles come back after lunch. They're really pissed off, and they get out their anger by playing music, and they sound like the Who. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, no, it's
They're
like the
up again.
rockiest Beatles you'll ever hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it was cool. Um, it's a good first episode. I'm excited to talk about the rest of them with you. So
Oh yeah. No,
we'll
it's
do
the
that.
second one. Yeah.
Yeah, second one's good to go. Thanks for listening to our little Who digression. We're going to do another like Who video real soon, and then we'll do another Beatles one, and then we'll see how it goes and how the reaction is. So, thanks everybody. Talk to you later.